Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here and welcome to the first of 4 sessions in the second edition of the award-winning Taiwan Season Online Symposium 2021, Connecting with Taiwan. My name is Donald Hutera. I'm a 64-year-old white male with silver blonde hair and tortoiseshell glasses, sitting beside a bright light and in front of a vivid painting in my attic in North London. And we have, you can see on screen, the other panelists today who will eventually be introduced. Before that, there are a few housekeeping tips. Throughout this session, please go down to the bottom of your Zoom screen, and if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A. Click on the Q&A icon. Also, if you have any comments, feel free to put them into the chat room. You can find that icon down at the bottom. And if you need captions, go down to the bottom and find the CC icon, or as happens on my screen, because I don't have that CC icon, there could be 3 dots, should be 3 dots in the corner that say more, and you will find the captions access there. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our moderator and ringmaster today, Laura Kriefman. Laura is a choreographer and artist, a creative producer, a commissioner, working in dance, theater, and interactive technology right across those fields. She is the founder of the company Hellion Trace Ltd, and is now also currently the chief executive of Barbican Theatre, Plymouth. Laura, what is on the agenda today, please, at the International Digital Roundtable?
Thank you very much for that introduction, Donald. Today's talk in this panel, I'm really excited by the panelists you're going to hear from today. It's going to be a really cracking morning. But we're exploring physical and digital work. We've got 3 big questions that I'm fascinated about, and after we've heard from the presentations from the panelists, we're going to kind of really dig into. And I suppose they come down to kind of three questions. Is it liberating, and is it creating opportunities for engagement and new movement styles by working with physical and digital, or is it a passing fad out of necessity? Are we actually managing to reach new audiences in a satisfying way, or just more people in a really tertiary, light touch way? And is combining dance and digital creating new opportunities for international collaborations? So those are really big, meaty questions, and that's what we're going to be getting our teeth into over the course of this morning. I'm going to give a little presentation about my work, which I'm going to go through very fast. So I'll show you some snippets of some videos as I go. And then I'm going to hand over to our 3 panelists who we really want to hear from today more than myself. We will hear from Tung-Yen, Rebecca Evans, and Wei Chou as well, who are exceptionally talented creatives from the UK, US, and also from Taiwan as well. So I'm just going to share my screen and we will start. Okay, so as I said, my name is Laura Kriefman and I run Hellion Trace. This is a little trailer about our work, which gives you a real sense of what time. So I set up Hellion Trace about 10 years ago. We were originally based in Bristol at the Pervasive Media Studio, which is an incredible international collaboration space for people looking at fusing movement and, well, actually technology and any other art form, and looking at what the new evolutions are. I personally am obsessed with the idea of liberating and exploring our sense of movement. And I'm very interested in what happens when we combine it with technology and what happens to the movement vocabularies, where we can work, who we can work with, and what we get to create. And I like that because it means I can make work that works on both a very large scale with up to 10,000 people, but also in a really intimate level as well. This has ended up leading to me talking at events all over the world, and I've had quite a few fellowships with Inc. and with Wired magazine, and has led to me being able to create work in far more locations than I would have imagined just by creating work in standard dance. So most of my work actually we generate internationally, and that to me is really exciting because that means we're always thinking about a new location, a new space. We're looking at the ideas and the rhythms and the colors and the music and the collaborators locally. And that means that we are doing things from changing harbour sides to working in disused forts in Indonesia to working at huge music festivals. So this is Glastonbury 2 years ago. But it also means we end up working with a huge range of collaborators who I otherwise wouldn't get to work with, from crane operators to city planners, to coders, to musicians, to infrastructure designers, hardware makers. It really changes who the people we get to work with. And as a consequence, we've actually ended up developing quite a lot of unusual technology, which was allowing us to tell stories, but creating the technology that allowed us to do that, which we couldn't find on the market otherwise. But fundamentally, it's about making really good experiences. I'm going to tell you about two specific projects which exemplify that at two different scales. The first is Crane Dance Bristol. Without working with technology, that project would have been absolutely impossible. There were no schematics for the cranes. We only had 2 nights of literally the dress after the lights were on and the actual show to actually make sure that we could make this work, which meant I had to pre-choreograph that show in visualization software. We had to build animations of these cranes to make sure that we could work within the affordances of that space. Literally make sure we didn't smash the windows out of the museum behind us. And that actually gave us a tool which meant that we could refine it with the music. We could think about the narrative of it. We could look at how we lit it, which was all done remotely from the opposite side of the harbour. But also we were able to generate sculptures afterwards that looked at that relationship of translation of movement through time in ways that we wouldn't otherwise been able to do. But fundamentally, by working with this way, having such a huge team of collaborators and being able to adapt and create ways to visualize and communicate, we were able to reach 10,000 people on that night who fell in love with watching cranes dance, who were referring to them as these beautiful choreographed creatures. And what's for me really important about doing things like this is because if you look at this image, this is an ECC scan of somebody's brain as they were watching Crane Dance Bristol. That is the level of total brain stimulation you get when you are at an event that combines your memory of a space, smell, sight, location, your audience, sound, and creates magic at the same time. And that's a memory and a half. And I know it is because people still send me photos of cranes from all over the world. And as a consequence, we've ended up with this work being featured in the new government documentation, creative industry sector deal. And also, I've gone on to choreograph other cranes, this one with 50,000 people underneath it at Glastonbury Festival, which is personally one of my favorite things to do. So if anyone's got any other machinery they'd like me to choreograph, I'm here for that. On the other end of the scale, I want to just tell you very quickly about a piece called Hellion, which is about the total other relationship that working with technology can be, which is, could we create a synesthetic experience that allowed you to explore how sound was generated through tap dance, but allow you to literally see sound. And the very interesting thing about working on this project was how it evolved and what we discovered as a consequence, which was that not only could you see sound, but you could create a visual relationship with the decay of sound and create space within the choreography. And within tap dance, which is usually a very fast and furious form, that allowed you to watch sound decay away. It also was a big progression of a couple of other projects, which you've seen small images of in these slides, which were about creating interactive visuals on screens, where I wanted to break away from the screen. So we're literally painting the dancer in space. The only time you see the dancer in space is when they generate sound and generate light that paints their body. So there is also a very unusual, almost, it's like being in a Greek chorus when you perform in this, because you are lost within this experience, and it is not just about yourself. This is also a project that can fit in a Pell case and go in normal luggage allowance. And so we've ended up touring it all over the world, and therefore working with collaborators, bringing new rhythms, bringing new field samples, recording new stuff, generating new work together, and working that back into the show to create the new albums and the new footage. I'm going to show you a little here. Just the first couple of loops, so you can just see it in action.
Of my heart.
I'm going to leave that there so you can just see a sample of how it builds together. That's led to us creating a new environment for that works with multiple performers and multiple dancers and multiple LED dresses working in the same soundscape. And so I suppose the thing that I love most about working with technology is the fact that over the course of developing projects, because they're very iterative, because we're evolving new languages, new collaborations, new vocabularies, and new ways of working together for new locations, the projects are allowed to evolve and grow, and therefore myself as a creator is allowed to evolve and grow. The work is allowed to develop its own creative voice, and it's not stuck in a vocabulary that is already preconceived, because it can't be, because of what we're doing. There is no previous vocabulary for what we're working on. So this show works just as well with lockers and hip hop dancers and contemporary dancers as it does with the tap dancer. So that's the end of my presentation and my exploration of some of those things and the two projects I wanted to talk to you about. And I'm very, very pleased to hand over to Tung-Yen to talk about his work.
Hi, thank you, Laura. The music of your piece is so good. I was so nervous, but while listening to your presentation, Laura, I was actually, dance to the music. And it's also amazing to see all the crowd, all that many people in the open space with your crane. Looking at that now is like an impossible event you can do. I'll introduce myself first. My name's Tung-Yen. You can call me Yen. I'm wearing a pair of glasses, and I'm wearing a black t-shirt with my Very Theatre logo on it. I'm in Taipei, Taiwan, and I'm on a white background. I use he and him pronouns. So I will just share my presentation with you. So my company is called Very Theatre Company, and I often ask, how can we be connected? I think it's also part of the topic of Taiwan Symposium this year, and I'm curious, this hashtag time, poetry, poetic, and international collaboration is definitely one of them. And my work has been to several festivals in Europe, including the puppet festival to a highly technology-based festival, and that's what I find very interesting. So the best way is to just show you a few video on it. So this is a work called Tea Time with Me, Myself, and I, which basically we have multiple iPhone and iPad on stage, and we've been working with a different performer to create different narratives. What you're looking at now is a collaboration with Danish institution. This is a collaboration with a Dutch group, VEC, and it was supposed to premiere last year in Groningen. We are still finding a way to present it. And today I'm gonna focus on talk about this one. I will show you more clips of it later on. It's called Virtual Intimacy. It's a collaboration with Australian company Act Now Theatre. That's my latest work, a VR 360 film. I'm very happy to share that it's in the Venezia Biennale this year. Thank you. So talking about virtual intimacy, I met artistic director of Asia Pacific Triennale, Stephen Armstrong, who saw my work and linked me to Edwin, Australian director. We both made a work focusing on dating apps, on queer virtual intimacy. So mine was a documentary film. It's called Looking For. where I interview around 60 people all over the world. And it's been screened in several festivals, and it's also online. And 0 Feet Away is a community theater art project and experiment, as you can see. And it was presented with a very strong engagement of having conversation with the audience using their phone. So our interest on mobile technology was, we've been matchmaking by the curator, and then we used 2 years to develop this work, Virtual Intimacy, where we premiered last year in Melbourne. Luckily, right before the outbreak of the pandemic. So we got back, and then Taiwan, the situation of the pandemic last year in Taiwan was extremely safe. So I managed to present it, also premiere it in Taipei last year, while Edwin and the Australian performer is in Adelaide, in Australia. The work is actually, in a way, complicated. You can say it's in 4 layers. It starts off with these 2 directors standing on the stage, and then there are one layer of performer which they portray different stories, and then community members sharing their stories, and the audience responds what they think about so many questions tangled with what's virtual and what's intimacy. And we actually talk about something virtual in the physical space. During our long conversation or discussion, we are like, sometimes we wonder, is theater really the best place to talk about something virtual, something intimate? I think yes, because in the end, theater is always about making what's private public. And we managed to make a work with this traverse setting with 2 gigantic screens on the side. And then what's quite interesting is how Edwin and I blend or communicate with our very different practice, because as you can see from my show reel, my works are quite visual based, a lot of images, and also I make documentary. And then Edwin has been working with community ever since he was in high school, and he's very good at communicating with a big group, and then structuring a workshop. So here is how we start the show with we 2 of us on the 2 sides of the space, looking at our image. We sort of kind of interrogate each other. We discuss several questions from time to time throughout the performance. And the performer, they are able to portray something more fictional or something that is more action-based. And we kind of refer this, our dramaturgy, sort of see this as like he think this is a kind of a Greek theater in a way, because we are the 2 troublemaker, the 2 gods. We'll have the performer, and then the community member and the audience somehow serve as a chorus. And I found that very interesting. So you can see the audience answers is actually projected on the screen. And then Edwin and I will continuously read out their answers. So we didn't just, have a group of members and ask them to, share their story directly, but we actually have a series of workshops finding people and finding out what do we think about what's virtual intimacy and what's so difficult about it. So it's not only in Melbourne, Adelaide, but also in Taipei. And finally, the most interesting part will be the audience participation. So we are all sitting in the theater, but we all have our smartphone. Most of us have our smartphone with us, and then we can answer all this question that is quite intimate through our phone. And the answer comes in really quickly, and then it's a bit like the wave of your opinion is just one of the 100. And then I personally really like the fact. And these are the questions we finally asked, we picked up throughout the probably 100 questions. It starts with something quite simple, like, are you single? Have you used dating app? Or how do you describe your gender? How do you describe your sexuality? To something about something more emotional, more insight, like what emotion did you feel just after you have last have sex, or when do you get lost online? What scares you the most about intimacy? This is actually a screenshot of the second day. So we closed the show, and the second day we turn on the computer and to set up, and then we saw that there are people who actually leave comments after they leave the show. The most common one will still always be who is still around, or people want to have connection. People want to say, wanna grab a drink, because someone described his gender as Beyonce, so that one say Beyonce. And yeah, this anonymous situation create a safe space, well, safe and not so safe space for audience to participate, to actually want to be seen. And that's virtual intimacy. So while lastly, this is just some photos of how they remotely work with us. So since they cannot be here, we start to make films of the actors, and then they will I actually call Edwin throughout the show, so he will be always on the phone with me. And that's me alone in Taipei on the stage looking at him. Now I'm gonna show you the trailer of it. Excerpt.
The project is about intimacy, and we have said that we're not good at intimacy ourselves.
大家好，我是虚拟亲密的联合导演Tung-Yen。刚刚那一位是另外一位联合导演Edwin。现在我要打电话给在7000公里之外的他。阿德雷德跟台湾有2个半小时的时差。Hello. Hello. Hi, Edwin.
Hi, Yen.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. First question.
Yep. First question is, are you single?
Okay. The answer comes in pretty quick. Can we have the result, please?
51% of you have used dating apps, and 29% of you are probably lying.
哇，我们准备了6组 profile。当你在交友软体上面要选人的时候，大家看仔细了。Which one would you like to have sex with？ 请公布结果。
Number 5 is.
请介绍一下你自己。
嗨，我是小宝。2020年截至目前为止，我看了48本书，31场表演。
我是小草，我是一名健身教练。我很喜欢唱歌，可以唱横跨25度音。
性别酷儿，我有男朋友。
iOS 的版本还停留在12.4。
IG播了72首自弹自唱，推特有71798位追踪者。
No, super like, no, yes.
So he is the Taiwanese performer.
所有的观众朋友们，拿起你们的手机，准备回答接下来要问大家的问题。请问，谁最值得被爱？请投票。现场倒数5秒，5、4、3、2、1，投票结束，请公布答案。32%的人认为4号看起来最值得被爱。
Hit it. Explaining. Out. Roll profiles. Open blank. 34. Next tag. Sure.
stop here.
我是小龙。
And there are more video including making of this production. And I'm recently thinking about translate this into a online and home experience, because I think it has a lot of potential. It thinks we have the structure, and then yeah, that's what we can maybe chat about more later on. Thank you. And I'm from Very Theatre Taipei. I'm gonna just stop sharing and come back. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. That was so fascinating. Listen, you talk about it and hear all those ideas about intimacy and that relationship with that in a public space. I have that set so many thoughts going for me. So thank you very much. I would love to see that show. I'm now really excited to introduce our second pair of panelists from Horst, which is Wei Chou and Wen, who are going to be talking to us about their work. So over to yourselves.
Hi, I'm Wei Chia from Taiwan. I am a choreographer and an oversized dancer and one of the founders of Horse.
Hi, I'm Huang. I'm a producer working alone with Wei Jia, and for the project we're gonna introduce you, Free Steps AR, Free Steps Are Yours. We are sitting in the studio of Horse, which is a warehouse structure, which is quite common for theater or dance company in Taiwan. And luckily the rain just stopped like 1 hour ago. It's been pouring a lot. If it's raining, you can hear actually the rain coming through from the roof. And we are lucky also that the pandemic alarm just eased down to level 3. So we are finally meeting each other after almost 2 months in the studio, and gladly with you guys online. Thank you.
Hi, once again, I'm Wei Jia from Taiwan. I am a choreographer and one of founder of Horse. Horse was founded in 2004. We started as a group of dancers and colleagues. From 2013, I started a 10-year project called Free Steps. The project is aiming to explore the, wait, where am I? The project is aiming to explore the most primitive status of dance and to explore the possibility of dancing. The proposition in Free Steps is how choreography can be simply and persistently about the body, especially in today's world. The practice of me is to peel off various layers of body characteristics and texture within set limitation, very often not repeating previous free steps. It takes time. In many cases, a long relationship between me and the dancer to shape and to sculpture the movement and physicality. I use the same philosophy with different dancers and public members, created a series of works. During this creation, it inspired me of new thinking in public art education and dance promotion. So for the 7th year in my decades-long choreography project, with the help of National Taichung Theatre, I created a system called Free Steps Are Yours with my partner. In Free Steps Are Yours, audience use their tablets or smartphones as they walk freely within various spaces in the venue, while using AR technology to see different dimensions of dance. This video was recorded from the exhibition, and there will be a little delay in the screen.
And in this project, we were trying to achieve is to sense the authenticity of dance, to use video with high resolution rather than 3D modeling, which is very common for AR nowadays. With video, the audience can still see the breath, the sweat, the skin, and the muscle of dancer instead of visualized body. So this is quite actually challenging in terms of technical for putting all the videos into one AR app, and it took us almost 1 year to have the basic and the app getting done at the first step. So we're very glad that we have.
Also, we several video recording. The audience is able to see the dancer from different sides, better than in this work, I continue my interest in exploring the body with refined physicality and the dance journey of 6 acclaimed Taiwanese dancers, Chen Wukang, Zhou Shuyi, Zhang Jianmin, and Li Yingying, Wu Mengke, Fang Yuting. We started from the smallest physical vocabulary that construct body movement, including beats, momentum, twisting, grooving, balance, description, 0 and 1, shape, flash, footsteps, attitude, and power, each offering a different perspective of the dance. With the help of digital technology, time and space are no longer limits, allowing the audience to freely traverse time and distance, spectating and performance. Next, I would like to share a video about the next phase of Free Steps yours. Before that, do you have anything to add?
Yes, we would like to say that this project was conceived in 2018 and was carried out in 2019 before the pandemic broke out. So we were very lucky that the work or this exhibition was one of the only presented program in the National Taiwan Theatre, Taiwan, back in April, May 2020. And it was a very unique and special experiences for us to see how the audience walking in and having their phone up, and they almost immediately knew how to interact with the AR, creating their own interpretation of the work. And since the technology is evolving rapidly, this year during the pandemic, we have been still upgrading the system and the video resolution. So the upgraded work is coming in next spring 2022, and we would like to show you a video of the upgraded progress.
其实我在排练的时候，我就是第一个观众嘛。我很满足的时候，我就有机会拿我最珍惜的这个东西去跟大家交朋友。第一阶段的时候，其实我受到了蛮多限制的，比如说 APP 商店只能2G，所以我所有的影像要被压在2G 里面。那这一次我期望的目标就是看到更未来，科技又进步了，5G 要来了，手机变好了，那我是不是比如说跑影片的时候就可以更流畅，画质可以更好，甚至我未来如果档案超大的时候，我可以把它变成串流的方式。我们要怎么样拍得更好、更好去背，然后环境要更好，我好像可以看到好多更细节的东西。3、2、1 ，Go。Take forward。
在这次的拍摄过程里面，我们选用的摄影器材已经从4K 的原始画质提升到6K， 那这样可以让最后的画面更锐利，然后颜色深度也会更高。 它有更多的细节，甚至可以看得到舞者的呼吸，还有他的流汗，其实是更接近写实，更接近我们人眼的状态。其实现场是用了非常多的灯，让整个空间变得很亮。相机的感光元件可以在这么高速的 frame 下面去做截取影像的动作。其实舞者非常的辛苦，因为整个环境很亮，眼睛会很不舒服。
因为镜头的那个画质更细致了，就感觉被更放大。其实只要眼睛飘了，还是状态一出来，其实镜头马上就会被发现。就是要更专注在自己身体里面多一点点，比较留意现在是身体自己的规则跟状态，有没有就是享受当下，然后做好当下，慢慢的去细细品尝它正在发生的事情。
这一阶段主要在模拟接下来可能会发生的问题嘛。这些用身体的达人，他进来，他们有他们习惯的使用身体的方式，不同的服装啊，所以测试的时候我就需要让很多的衣服出现，比如说我们在去背的时候，知道哪一套衣服是效果很好的，哪一种衣服是不可以选择的。
在输出到手机使用之前，我会先在电脑做模拟我是当使用者的那个角度，就比如我从右到左，左到右，这摄影机就是模拟手机的使用角度，看它的影片是不是有切换正常等等。在手机上一个 App 要播影片其实是蛮困难的，所以我们在那时候遇到一个比较大的瓶颈，是在切换角度的时候，它会有一个落差，就是会有一个空白处，让民众觉得好像不是这么的完美，压缩了许多影片的空间、环境等等，所以让整体效果虽然有些是顺畅的，可是影片有点不耐看。这次的效果就是比较像我最早开始接触自由舞一个最完美的想象，让一个怎么讲，就是很拟真的舞者真实的在前面，然后是一个无缝，是一个你各个角度都能看到的一个效果。就差一点点，如果它可以普及到更多的人使用者上面的话，我觉得是更好的。
其实这样的一个工作团队，它不同于我们过去习惯的舞台设计、灯光设计等等的合作，它其实是重新一个拍摄团队以及 AR 制作团队，然后加上编舞跟舞者的一个全新制作团队的组合。所以透过这些科技的协助，反而可以让我们把现在作品的发展推进到另外一种我们从来没有想象过的可能性。也很希望可以邀请观众在科技变化快速跟世界步调快速的未来里面，跟我们一起体验。
我们第一次看到在 AR 里面呈现的时候，都觉得，这次的画质真的提升的非常多。过程当然辛苦，可是看到影像是觉得蛮兴奋。
更贴近真实吧。我觉得，因为好像是真的有一个人在你面前的那种感觉。
可以自由的看表演，然后可以自由的想要看自己的舞者，然后可以随时随地让自己舞者摆放在你想要看的位置做呈现。我觉得打破了蛮多框架的。
有时候我们在做一个作品的时候，我们会看到一个空间，然后我说，我好想编这个，我好想在这边跳舞哦，这个地方要放这个舞。很感谢歌剧院愿意给我们这个机会，让我们真的可以下去做。拿起手机，我们就可以去阅读每一个人表演的方式，认识这个人，认识某一种舞蹈的方式。那现在我要许更大的愿，就是也许他不一定是看见你的自由步，也许他可以拍音乐演奏，他可以演戏，我们一起把它拍下来，然后我们一起用一种不一样的方式，把自己分享给大家。 It is expected to see it in TIFA, NTT TIFA, National Taichung Theatre Taiwan International Festival of Arts next spring. Thank you. Thank you very much.
We look forward for more questions in the coming Q&A session.
That was just beautiful to see, and so interesting to see how that iteration of the technology allowed so much more of the intimacy and the reality of the performer to reach. And I can see how that work could tour. Like, I'd be really interested in seeing your performers on the streets of Plymouth and having that relationship with that. So I think that's really exciting to see in that conversation about that internationality. So thank you so much for your presentation. I'm going to take us over to our last panelist, last but by no means least, which is Rebecca Evans. Rebecca, over to your fair self.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Evans. I've got curly hair, I've got freckles. I am in a white room with yellow shelves and some artwork on the back and a black t-shirt. My pronouns are she, her. So I am the artistic director and choreographer of Pell Ensemble. And I'm just going to start my slideshow here for us. So, yeah, so as I was saying, I was the artistic director and choreographer for Pell Ensemble. We are a company that uses dance and digital to create performance and engagement experiences. And we're looking to create innovative experiences to challenge the future. So a lot of what we make is asking questions to the audience about what our future could look like We're also doing engagement experiences that also hope to change the future landscape, especially in digital industries. So I am been a fellow on the bench with Two Face Dance Company. I've also been a fellow on Questlab Network with Studio A. McGregor, and been commissioned by Two Face Dance, London Borough of Culture, Wilton's Music Hall, and recently by Dance Beds, which is University of Bedfordshire, Bedford Creative Arts and Dance East, for a new work that's going to be an interactive 360 sound and movement piece. But today, I'm going to focus on two works, kind of our two sides of what we do, our performance and our engagement side. And the performance that I'm going to be focusing on today is Upload Unplug. So in Upload Unplug, we have the audience on tablets and they change the dance, sound, and projection in the space in real time. So this work, we started making this work in 2015. It was about a 3-year work between 2015 and 2018. And we started on a couple of different questions. So one question was looking at how we could use mobile devices to interact with the dancer on stage in real time and have the audience change what was happening in that space. We were also looking at data and large data corporations and starting to kind of investigate those conversations around how large data corporations were tracking us online, capturing our data and using that for profit. So in this, you come into the stage space and we created a fake data corporation called Epoch. And Epoch invites you in. We hand you a tablet, which is already all set up, and you go through a series of onboarding. And in that onboarding, we ask you increasingly more intimate information about yourself, including fun things like who's the first person you kissed, to then your credit card information, which a surprising amount of people actually, probably about 20% of people actually did get their credit cards out and type in the information. We don't keep the data, we always dump it afterwards, but it was quite surprising to me how far people would kind of go with giving their data at the beginning. We also get you to take a selfie of yourself. And then as this screen is showing, we you create your own avatar. So the avatar has its own shape, it has its own animation, it has its own color, along with a number, which is also on your tablet. So you know as an audience member who you are in the space with the dancer, and that you have real impact, and that you're kind of virtually shown in that space. So after the onboarding, you are met with a David. David is kind of an AR robot, an AI robot, and it's kind of a blank slate. And you go through a series of interactions that your data starts to build David, and starts to create David as a human in the form of your data that you've handed over. This kind of goes on. There's a couple of scenes where the information from your onboarding does show up, and your selfies show up, and this kind of, you dance essentially in that space with David. And then at the end, there is a choice. So there's a series of votes that the audience does together, where you can either upload, which means you're going to give the data over to Epoch, this data company, and it means that you'll save David, this creation that you've made. Or you have the choice to unplug, which means that you kill David, but you keep your data. So I'm just going to show the video for this here.
Welcome, valued participants, to Upload Unplug. This is the latest live gaming experience from Epoch. We are glad you are here. All David needs is your data. You will give David breath, coordination, and the ability to understand this world as you do. Will you do enough to sustain David physically and spiritually? Will you do enough to keep David alive? Give data. Give life.
Great. So yeah, I think with this work and with much of the other work that I do, I'm really interested in looking at how those interactive and immersive technologies can help us to tell stories, help us to engage our audiences, not only in the performance, but in engagement, but also in the making process as well. So how do we use these technologies to do that? So this photo here is of when your information and data shows up, and David is dancing with that. You can see there's a selfie and some other information. So this work was supported by Arts Council England and numerous other artistic partners. And this toured in the UK, luckily in autumn 2019. And then we also took it to Athens Digital Arts Festival as well. The work is for probably about ages like 12 plus, and we have 40 tablets, which means we can have 80 users or 80 audience members, and sometimes we have like 2 people per tablet, which is quite fun. And then sometimes doing multiple performances in the evening. It was really important for us in this piece, and what we found through a lot of our user testing when we were creating the work was that the audience really wanted to know that it was them that was creating the changes in the space, that they were having that impact on the story, on the narrative. And so we worked really hard in this to try to find that. So I'm going to switch gears over into our Move and Code program. So when we were creating Upload Unplug, I was looking for how to share this through an engagement experience. And I was really interested in kind of how to share the ways that an interactive performance can be created and kind of peel back the layers to that. And then also I was interested in sharing how dance and digital can come together in some really creative and exciting ways. So while I was thinking about that, I went to Women of the World, there's a Women in Tech event, and I met with Sue Adams, who's a creative computing curriculum specialist here in the UK. And also has a background in dance. And we kind of started to discuss this. We also started to discuss the lack of diversity that was in the digital industries, especially among women and females and those that identify as female. So many conversations led on to creating this one-day workshop. And this initial workshop was for ages 10 to 12 in the UK, which is where we really identified there's a real drop off and there's a real kind of backing away from female students about wanting to get into computing. So I'm going to play the video because I think it explains quite a bit here.
Today we did a workshop and we used movement and physical computing to teach the basics of programming. One of the things that's special about this workshop is that I come from a specialism in dance as a professional dancer and choreographer, and Sue comes from specialism in computing and computing curriculums. So together we are getting students to create their own movement, create loops, and create selection within their choreography, and try to understand what a computer program might be doing, but doing it through movement.
I've been showing students how they can create new technology tools using sensors, different inputs, different outputs to create an interactive element to their performance that allows the audience to control what happens on the stage. It's great for making sure that everyone and anyone who might take part in it understands the core fundamentals of programming, and that leads them into a digital performance field, which is something that we're seeing more and more. So yeah, there's lots that can be gained.
They definitely are working in teams, so they're definitely learning collaboration, they're learning creative problem solving, they're learning how to prototype, they're learning how to test a tool, they're learning how to refine that tool, they're learning how to give constructive feedback in this space, and they're really learning how two different subject matters can come together creatively to produce a really exciting output and be able to create that shared language.
So this is the program that we created. That's the version of our one-day program that we delivered to 10 to 12-year-olds. We've been doing, we've been doing this for about 4 years now and developing the program. We've delivered it to over 800 participants now. We've delivered in the UK and the USA with a great program there called STEM from Dance. And it's led us into many other versions of the workshop. So we also have programs or workshops that look a little less at the programming fundamentals and trying to teach that computing curriculum side and more at how you collaborate between dance and digital. How do you create those shared languages? And so we've delivered that at universities. We've also delivered it for professional workshops, and we're also in talks with Singapore National Arts Council to do a week-long experience for professional dancers and creative technologists. So this program has been supported by Arts Council England. We also did some research and further development with University College London's Interaction Centre. It was also supported by Studio Wayne McGregor, and recently we've gotten Paul Hamlin Foundation funding to expand the program so that it can kind of reach a bit further. So looking at how we can train teachers to use some of these methods in the classrooms to teach computing, and also looking at how we can create a more an online resource that can be used more widely. So those are kind of the two halves of what we do. We do some things that kind of meet in the middle between kind of community and professionals as well. But yeah, so here's all my information, and you can take a look at further projects there.
Amazing. I'm now also, all right, this is it. You've all made my life very complicated because I'd like to commission you all and find out how to work with you all, because our panel today are such talented creators and have such eloquence and understanding of why and how they work in such different ways. Thank you so much, Rebecca. If I can invite Tung-Yen and Chou and Wen to turn their videos and their microphones back on. Hi guys, nice to have you back here.
Hi.
Hey, there has been some absolutely brilliant questions coming in from the audience on the Q&A section, and I know that Tung-Yen has been answering some of them as it goes along, and Donald's been collecting some of those for us. I suppose that there's a really interesting one which is very related to all of the questions, I feel. Well, one very interesting one that's come up and is in a lot of your work, especially all three of your works, is this idea of the intimacy and the relationship. So it's very interesting hearing both, Rebecca, you were reflecting a similar language about the questions you set up at the beginning with David, which is very similar in some ways to the progression of the questions and the intimacy that Tung-Yen you bring in with your project, with virtual intimacy. And I thought that has a resonance with Chou, with the clarity of your choice of using the video footage of your performance so that you can see the sweat, you can see their breath, and how that's actually the element that you feel like you want to improve as part of this project. So I suppose there's an open question there to everyone, which is, actually, what is the open question there? There's an open observation there. I suppose the question is, do you feel with the technology that you're working with that you can keep exploring and taking that intimacy further with either the performers or the audience?
Yes, I think yes. I think yes, it was one of the questions that we really had with Upload and Plug, and actually we worked with UCL's Communications and Interactive Systems department, and we had questionnaires that were created by a behavioral scientist, and we got heart rate monitors on the audience. And the main question was, does this technology and does this experience create more intimacy between the audience and the dancer, and also among the audience, between the audience as doing this kind of collective experience together. And actually, I mean, it was a very light study because we didn't have a control of not doing it without the technology. But there was a lot of synchronicity with the heart rates. There was a lot of synchronicity between when people were tapping, the amount they were tapping, and the behavioral, the questionnaire was really interesting. There was one of draw a circle of you and draw a circle of David, and how close you feel. And many times that circle was inside the other circle. So I think, yeah, I think we're still trying to, I'm interested in unwinding what exactly of those different, exactly, how do you take it further or use different technology to create that same kind of intimacy?
Yes, I feel that I would respond to my part, and I feel that because I'm thinking about making it a home version or a late night version, so it's not, you know, 7 o'clock, you need to go to theater, grab a drink or something. You'll be. I really wish to enlarge or exaggerate the feature of being at home and then, you know, being with your phone, and but also listening or actually speaking out or something. And I just feel that sometimes the phone, the relationship with our phone, or how we use it in the performance is a little bit like the confession. How do you say that? The confession cube in the church in the old time, maybe now. And yeah. So actually, camera sometimes serve this purpose as well. Like sometimes when you are being interviewed, or when I interview someone, it becomes a confession room. And so it's extremely, you just depends how honest you want to be with yourself. And I think by exploring this further, I believe it will go even deeper. A lot of audience responds to me that they just enjoy reading the other's answer. And what I also found very interesting is that sometimes after 2-3 months or even half a year later on, they are still using that little chat room to see if someone's there. And people will say, I'm still here, and then the date. And so it's like a virtual memorial site for their shared experience. Yeah. And I'll quickly respond to a quick question on the Q&A session about whether I feel okay to bring my show on demand, my performance on demand. I think there's something very particular, very special, like irreplaceable about theater that you just cannot replace it. However, we also see a lot of successful production of bringing it online and then like making it more accessible to people who doesn't have the access to theater. And so I'm definitely agree with it, but just in what way? And then when it's an online performance, when it's labeled as an online performance or experience, it need to be curated and created for the online experience. Or when it's a recording, we know it's a recording and we know it's a limitation, and then it's great to have this very conveniently. Thank you.
Thank you. And do you feel, for the three of yourselves, that there was a question in the open questions that have been coming in about, do we feel like it's easier for this work to travel internationally and for us to collaborate? So it came in around for Wei Chou and Horse, which is about whether or not, are you planning on being able to create this performance abroad or take it further? Like I was asking, can we download this app? Can we program this in the UK? Do you feel that for yourselves, because you all three of you work internationally, have done over the years, that your ease of collaborating and using these tools internationally and thinking about how the work could be transferred to a different audience is a little bit has been developed further by working this way? Or do you still feel like you wish you could be in the room with people and would like to be in Australia, genuine, or in that you need to be in the rehearsal room, Wei Chou, with the performers? I'm going to throw that one to Wei. Yes.
So I would just translate for
Yes, sorry.
Brain waves to me is a very new technology. We've been being acknowledged of the international situation of the pandemic or the near future that we've been actually discussing about working this remotely, which is very likely possible. However, it would be the most ideal to have just maybe Wei Jia and the AI programmer, only two. So it's a very minimum traveling group to see the place and the site to decide which place for which piece of dance to put, and that can create a different intimacy on site with people. And I would just like to go back to pick up what Tung-Yen had said, that the phone and the camera are nowadays probably the most intimate devices that by people in the society. So I think that the definition of intimacy has been changing, that in this AR project, we are actually transforming the intimacy in the theater into the relationship of the audience and their film, and also liberating the power of beholding to the audience, that they can actually choose the angle they want to see the dance. And that's also creating a different kind of intimate experiences for audience when they watch dance. And there's another questions for Weijia actually in the question session that was like we have been thinking if we should connect a live performance with this AR performance together. But our answer so far is that we are not sure, because it's very precious in this AR project that how the audience approach the performance by themselves, and it's very direct. It's very of their own. But with a live performance, it's actually another different kind of setting. So we are not sure yet, like how to connect them for the audience to have a fulfilled experiences so far. So yeah, it's still, but it's a good question that we've been thinking a lot.
Thank you.
I want to sort of join Wen's talk, because I was actually in Taichung Opera House to see the Weijia's work. And for me, what he showed in the video is more really about how to make them very, very real, very actual size of the performance just right in front of you. But what's really amazing in the work he did was there's a gigantic fountain outside the opera house, and then there's a gigantic dancer that when you turn on your phone using the app, you will see a larger than life size of dancer dancing beside the fountain. I think that's the most spectacular part of it. And then what's very intimate is when I am in the exhibition space, a lot of people dance with the virtual dancer. So they can snapshot, they can take picture with the dancer. So it's actually, Weijia didn't ask people to dance with the dancer, but people automatically want to dance with the virtual dancer. So that's what I want to also quickly share what my experience of his work.
So the tool is allowing you to create live relationships and intimate collaborations between audience members, as well as see and create dance in different locations. Yeah, I noticed the footage of the fountain and went, that's really exciting. So yes, I saw that in the little film and went, lovely. And I think that links a little bit towards for both you and for Rebecca, in the sense of that you're generating something new each time. So even though that AR footage is pre-recorded, that relationship with the person moving around to see the footage in a different place, or dancing with it with their friends in the space and taking photos, is an evolution of the piece every single time, which is what both Tung-Yen you talked about and Rebecca you talked about with David, and which in our live shows we also explore. So I think there's something very interesting here, which is that we are creating work that has the permission to be new and different each time it is experienced, and that the technology is enabling that, which is quite different to traditional dance, which is often a set and written choreography and a show which is finite and repeated. So that's quite a different evolution with that. Do you feel like that? There's a question here from Gary Platt about whether or not that's the use of the technology, and I think we've slightly answered this, Gary, but is making things more accessible and adaptable, and that these works will be the first of many more collaborative events and performances. Do you see that in your futures, that of creating more collaborative events and performances, having created the work you've made to date? I'm going to go to Rebecca first on that.
Yeah, I think, especially as like this technology and the interactive technologies are getting easier to access and cheaper and, better. I think that is going to happen more and more. I think for myself, yeah, there's a little bit of getting comfortable with the idea that it's going to be different every time, you know, and there's a lot of thought that has to kind of go behind that, a lot of audience testing, I think. But then that's what creates the excitement for everyone, I think, that's involved. So yeah, definitely going a little bit more into, I think, exploring just different formats in which that can happen. Yeah.
I think nowadays audience are eager to participate more. Yeah, right. Like they have all kind of entertainment at home, so when they are going, when they go out, they are ready to give more. And then I also think by creating or devising or experimenting with all these things, what's traditional is also still there. You know, we are not like saying that no, we'll never go back to the choreographer fixed dance, but so very diverse future.
And Wei Zhao and Wen?
Yeah, like we totally agree with Tung-Yen that the audience nowadays look for more participation and more, you know, spontaneous participation in the work. And we also believe that this cross-disciplinary conversation will definitely bring us to different kind of collaboration that is coming in. One thing that Weijia has been dreaming about, that's not happening yet, but he's been dreaming about a lot by using this AR tool, is that in the future that all, like each international dancer, say Rebecca, if you're coming to Taiwan to give a performance, then you will be able to actually record a 1 minute piece of your AR and here, so we can appreciate and share your aura, even you took off back to England. That's one thing that Weijia has been dreaming about by using this AR tool in the future.
Gosh, that would be lovely, and to see what people make as a response. And that thing about the audience changing, I just want to loop back to a couple of questions that have come through on the Q&A. So I'm going to bring them together a little bit. But you all just mentioned that audiences are enjoying things which are more collaborative, which they are more open and anticipating to be more involved in performances or in the relationship with them. And I have a question about that, about how that works with the younger generation. So the original question came through for Rebecca, which is, do you find with the work that you're doing with young people, the digital generation, that they are creating more playful things or bringing up much more complex layered work, almost like you'd find in video games, in the way that they're creating in your workshops? And I'm wondering whether or not that's been the same, Tung-Yen, with the community workshops that you've been doing with your last couple of shows. So I'm going to go to Rebecca first on that.
It's a good question. I think, yeah, they have a digital literacy that's there, that we don't have to bring them on board with. You know, they're ready and willing to work with these digital tools really quickly. And so, yeah, therefore they can be maybe more easily and quickly creative with that. I think, and I'm just coming from, I think, a UK perspective on computing in this country, that it tends to be quite screen-based and maybe in some cases lack some of that creativity in it. And I think that's where we're really, really keen to kind of go, oh, wow, this can be applied in a theater context, a dance context, and all these other spaces, and kind of really show how creative computing can be. And I think when we do that, that's when I think the students, and I see them like really start to fly and kind of think about their futures in digital in a really different way. And in working with students, because so we did a lot of testing, especially for Upload Unplug, with audiences of various ages. And that was fantastic because they're so honest, you know, they're really honest about what works, what doesn't work, what does this make sense to them, doesn't it? If it doesn't work, they're turned out right away. So it's a really great audience testing base to work with as well. And they'll tell you why it doesn't work and what they'd like to have instead. So it's great.
I would love to actually join that coding class with some dance movement. I was so impressed. Are the kids somehow have some dance background?
So those students did, but oftentimes we're working with students that don't have any movement background.
Yeah, they dance so well. I mean, yeah, I'm so impressed. I'm gonna share about generation. In my performance, there are actually people who has difficulty, logging on the chat room, but the lady actually tell me that, but she enjoys sitting there reading the other's answer, and then she can see her own answer being typed by the others. I think that's quite beautiful. And also, I think when we talk about participation, it's not always cheerful and positive. Because when we're talking about humanity, when we talk about desire, there are always this darker side, this unspoken side. And then, so actually when we did our premiere in Australia, we didn't have the voting system for the community member. But then when we did it in Taipei, we really want to have this kind of judge a book by its cover kind of experience for all the audience to just, see some profile, judge them, see who is the most educated or most desirable. And then, so we also try to put, different aspect of our behavior online. And then I think that's something that goes on. And I really look forward to, one audience member actually asked if I look for participation, especially the community member locally, and the answer is yes, because we want to know what the local community feel, and then what's their story, what's their experience. And then, so, when the work is ready to travel again, or maybe we make an online version so that we can, share with a bigger community, maybe a global community, maybe. But yeah, that's it.
Brilliant. And I'm just going to bring that to Chou. Thank you very much. You're in on it.
We just admire Rebecca's project of the school. Like, we love it. Like, how connected with choreography and body, with coding algorithm, and the way of thinking is just very exciting. We will share like one thing interesting about the AR exhibition. Like, we noticed that, especially during the weekend, the exhibition went on from like 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. So in the morning, it's more like the elderly people will show up. And we noticed that's when the audience, the spectators would have some issues with their phone, like how to log in, how to download the app, and how to operate it. And in the afternoon, when the young people got up and finished their brunch and came into the exhibition, they had no problem at all. They just like naturally get into and download, like there's no issue at all. So definitely it's a great tool to engage the younger audience in the future. However, we are also, because the elderly is what Weijia is more looking after, which is like a growing percentage of our population. So that's actually the one group of audience that we would like to engage and reach out. So at this phase, we think that the more people we reach out, the broader audience we might get in the future for dance, since contemporary dance especially, is always quite limited in terms of audience members. So our goal is just to expand as many as possible, to transform dance, performing arts into a public arts that can be heard and enjoyed by everyone.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'm really sad that I've just realized the time. It is 27 minutes past 12, which means I have to wrap this up. Whereas actually, I would greatly like to spend an entire day in a room with you guys discussing these questions and having the questions we're getting through from our attendees and participants as well. I'm sorry if we haven't quite reached everyone's. I feel like we've touched on most people's questions, but my apologies if we didn't quite get to all of them in as much detail as you would like. I believe that we've been making sure that you've got all the information about everybody who's been participating today, and you can also go to the Taiwan season Ed Fringe link and find out how to contact us if you've got more questions. mostly I would like to say thank you so much to all of our panelists here, because your work is all extraordinary and approaches all these different elements that we would talk, which I said in the beginning I wanted us to talk about, with great eloquence in their own delivery. And I look forward really to seeing what everyone creates. Check out everybody's videos, check out what people are doing. And if you're interested in their work, promote them, commission them, get them to the UK, get us to Taiwan. And I look forward to all the collaborations that come out of today and the people that you've heard speak from. So from all of us here, I would like to say thank you very much indeed. I'm going to give everyone you get 10 seconds to say one last thing that you'd like to the audience. Rebecca.
Thank you for letting me share all of that. And this is a really wonderful discussion. It was really wonderful to meet different collaborators and different people that are in the space currently. Yeah.
Tung-Yen.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Have a great lunch.
And Weijia.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe and healthy.
Brilliant. And over to Donald for our final plug.
Hello again. Just want to remind everybody that you've registered for Zoo TV Live. That means you will have access to our next webinar at 2 p.m. Unheard Voices, which is pinned to the Green Island Human Rights Art Festival, and there will be independent artists there, and also Sam Holland, who is the founder of Migration Matters Festival in the UK. Do not forget that Taiwan Season also has online performances available on demand through summerhall.co.uk. And we have 2 more webinars next week. It's all on that website. Thank you so much for being here. You are lovely, articulate, new thought, new knowledge, new collaborative people here on this panel. I hope that you who are watching and listening have enjoyed being here as much as I have. Thanks, and see you again.
Thank you.